Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth. I want to welcome you to the most wonderful time of the year. And I want to thank you all for being here this evening. We do have a need for an invocation, and Reverend Camille Pencil. Council members, please stand, and citizens, please stand for the invocation provided by Reverend Camille.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that we've all made it through, and now we're here in the evening. Now, Lord, there's a lot of folks in here, and that means that there's work to be done. So we're calling on you to guide us so that each and every person within the sound of my voice is here because Portsmouth is on their heart and they want to see this a better place. Heavenly Father, we invite your presence here in our conversations, in our agreements and disagreements, but most of all, that we are all here together, citizens of Portsmouth, proud to be here. And together we say, amen.
Once again, welcome all, and thank you for that prayer, Reverend Camille Pencil, Crossroads United Methodist Church. And Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Here.
Mr. Battle?
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg? Here. Mr. Moody?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mr. Woodard?
Here.
Mayor Glover?
Here. Members of council, we have for our consideration the minutes of a called meeting on November 18th, 2021, a called meeting on November 23rd, 2021, a regular meeting on November 23rd, 2021, and of a called meeting on December 2nd. Is there any discussion of the minutes? If not, then we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. And Madam Clerk, would you please read our speaker statement?
Yes, sir. City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
We are now at public hearing, item A, S 21-02. And Madam Clerk, please read the agenda item and resolution we are considering pertaining to this item.
Yes, sir. S 2102, Highland Whitmore, ordinance granting the request of Thomas D. Ford and Teresa Cox Ford for the closure of a portion of an alleyway that will be evenly divided and maintained by all the adjoining property owners. The closure area is adjacent to the applicant's daycare center at 603 Hanson Avenue and abuts 200, 204, and 208 Truxton Avenue. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property for single-family residential, low to medium density. The property is right-of-way owned by the City of Portsmouth. Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions, and the actual ordinance you will be adopting is an ordinance to close a 12-foot by 150-foot portion of an alley extending south from Hanson Avenue and located between Montclair Avenue and Truxton Avenue.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Is the applicant present? Yes. Would you come forward, please, to the podium? To the podium. Good evening, ma'am. Sir, would you please
Good evening.
state your name, sir?
Good
and
evening.
address?
My name's Thomas Ford. This is my wife, Teresa Cox Ford.
Yes, sir. And you have 10 minutes, sir.
All right.
You don't need to take the whole 10 minutes, but if you don't want to, I mean, if you're comfortable and you need 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes.
All
However,
right.
you can use.
I'll
use
take
the
2
time
minutes then. My name's Thomas, and this is my wife, Teresa. And of course, we're the owners of Toddler Time Daycare Center, located at 603 Hanson Avenue, Portsmouth, Virginia. We're here today requesting the closure of the alleyway, which is located adjacent in the property near our playground area. We have maintained this alleyway for over 20 years. We have noticed within the last 5 years, it has a high increase of theft, drug, and prostitution activity in this alley. We feel by closing this alley, it will help decrease the crime activity in our community, and it will ensure the safety of the adorable daycare kids at Toddler Time Development Center. Thank you for your time, Speaker. All right.
Thank you, sir. And if you're done, you may be seated.
That's all. Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and speak on this public matter, you can come forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward to speak on this public hearing? Seeing none, then this public hearing is now closed. Oh, okay. Come on. Come forward, ma'am. Yes.
I happen to stay in that area, and.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
took
Could you state your
video-
name and address, please?
Sheila Joseph, 139 Grand Street,
Thank you.
and Hanson. In that area, I took videos, but I didn't know they was concerned about it. I was concerned about that same situation in that area, but also in some other areas in that area where we live. There's a lot of activity going on, drugs and everything, and I'm not used to it.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else? This is a public hearing. If you wish to come forward and speak on this matter, you have 5 minutes. And if you would please state your name and address.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Shameen Rollins, and I live at 72 Farragut Street. I was witness to the last shooting that occurred. I saw right in front of me the guy shooting someone that hangs out in Afton Square. Parties are constantly hanging out at the square. They're doing drugs, and there's prostitution directly in front of me. My son was behind me when the situation happened. He heard the gunshots. I've now made the decision to have him live with his father in Norfolk because I feel it's too dangerous for him to go to school, which he has to walk through the Afton Square. So now my son's gonna be away from me because of this situation that's just happened. This is the second shooting that I've witnessed since I've been in Portsmouth. I've been here for a year and a half, since July of 2021. I witnessed prostitution and drugs and pretty much everything you can imagine just looking out the window of my house. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to remind everyone, this is the public hearing for this particular item. So if you're listed as a registered or non-agenda speaker, we will get to that segment at the end of the agenda. However, this is for the public hearing that was just mentioned, that was related to the daycare center. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward and make any comment relating to this item in the public hearing? Seeing none, then this public hearing is now closed, and we are in need of a motion.
Move for approval.
Madam Clerk, is there any discussion with my members of council? Councilwoman Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question will be to staff, looking at this picture that's listed here, and I received some communications from another residents who have an alleyway behind their house, or who maintains that for, is the citizen responsible for that, or is the city handle that, or how is that handled?
That's maintained by the citizen adjacent to it, adjacent to the alley.
Okay, so that, even though, so is that their property?
It's not their property, it's city property, but it's maintained by the adjacent properties, the adjacent property owners.
Vice Mayor Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
So you're saying it's city property, but the residents maintain it? Is that what you're saying?
Right, by city code, property owners that are adjacent to these types of alleys, they cut the grass and maintain those adjacent strips.
Well, how is that fair? We literally got a policy where we own property, but we expect the citizens to do it? I think that needs to be something that needs to be changed. I don't understand why we're not taking care of that. So do we put a fine on them if they don't take care of it?
Yeah, that's in city code. That is a city code requirement.
How long has that been?
As long as I'm aware, it's been in the city code.
Well, that just sounds stupid.
I do have concerns with that, deputy manager, because we're getting emails from other residents who are charged fines, and some are seniors, and, you know, for them to have to bear the cost of bearing this upkeep, you know, I think we need to look at some other alternatives to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Moody, and then City Manager, would you like to address that?
Let me
Oh, okay.
say something first.
I didn't. Councilmember Moody, then Dr. Whitaker, then the City Manager.
Well, what I'm going to add to it, I know in the past, we've had citizens that requested ownership of the property, and it's been conveyed to them. Obviously, it goes on the tax rolls. So maybe we should let the citizens know what that process is. Obviously, if they're maintaining it and they've got use of it, but technically they don't own it, we need to make them aware of what they can do to get ownership. If somebody can speak to that tonight, I think that would enlighten the audience.
Okay, we'll hold that question.
Obviously, nobody will speak to it tonight.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, instead of speaking to that issue tonight, I think since it's an ordinance, it would be for council at our next council meeting, hopefully in public work session, to review the ordinance and see if there's change that would be put in place.
City Manager, okay, well, okay. Councilman Battle, and then Councilmember Woodard after that.
The folk are asking for relief. It's simple. We need to try to work a strategy out to give them immediate, not we'll get together next week. We need to give them immediate relief from this foolishness. We got to stop those folk from going back there. There are ways to do this. We have to put an impact policy to give them relief. It's simple. Our folk are quite capable. Please, let's not defer any of this. We'll get it, let's get it tomorrow. Because these folk, you're in agony when you got that traffic in your back porch. That's all they want. It's not rocket science. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Baldwin, will our applicant be moving the fence actually, or will it be knocking their fence down and sharing the neighboring fence, you know, just to make sure that they can properly take care of that,
Right.
that new acquired aisle?
Right, our understanding is a plan to relocate the fence in order to block off the property that would be turned over to them by the street closure. So
Okay.
they would then block that access so you could not pass straight through as you can today.
Right, and would they be taking over I guess a new tax procedure for that little strip, like Mr. Moody was saying?
Well,
You
it's
know,
a-
because I know sometimes when you get those small properties, just like those row houses, you still had to pay taxes separate from your existing property. So is that still the case for this strip?
I can't speak to the exact tax implication. I would just say that this property ends up incorporated into their parcel, so their parcel become slightly larger, but I don't imagine that would have much impact on the taxes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
You got it, sir. Dr. Whitaker, sir.
No, that's fine. I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Battle just said, that the way for us to correct it is with modifying the ordinance. And so hopefully we can get that before us at our next council meeting.
Madam Manager, did you have something you wanted to say, ma'am?
Yes, I just wanted to add to this discussion that staff is in the process of reviewing a number of ordinances that we will be presenting for recommended changes that have not been reviewed in a while and do not meet today's circumstances. So this will be one of many that we will bring before the council.
What's the timeline that we're looking at?
We were going to bring them through during the budget process because we wanted you to have all the information as we make budget decisions. So most of them we were going to bring during that process, but we can bring this one at the next council meeting.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
Councilman Battle, sir, you have the floor.
But again, immediate relief. Can our police department put together an impact situation to give them immediate relief while we're putting together policies to make it an everlasting peace? It's happening now. We need to get our police department to act. All the rest of it's fine. But we got to do this immediate impact to give these folk relief. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, we are in need of a motion. Well, we already had the motion in the second. So we are in need of, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Battle,
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard,
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. Item B, UP-21-17. And Madam Clerk, please read the agenda item and resolution we are considering pertaining to this item.
Yes, sir. Resolution granting the request of Lloyd, Vaughn Jr. and J Investment Corporation for a use permit for 4 townhouses at 816 Randolph Street. The property is zoned neighborhood mixed use. The parcel will be developed at a density of 12 units per acre. The Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan recommends commercial development for the property. Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions. The actual resolution reads, a resolution granting a use permit, UP 2117, to J Investment Corporation to develop 4 townhouses at 816 Randolph Street.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Is the applicant present? Would you please come forward to the podium, sir? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, council members. How are you?
Good.
My name
Could you
is
please
Lloyd.
state your name?
Yes, sir. My name is Lloyd Vaughn with
Okay.
J Investment Corporation.
And you have 10 minutes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My plan is to try to develop 4 residential, single-family townhomes, each of which will be 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, with 1-car garage. Square footage of each will vary between 1,400 and 1,600 square feet. The plan is also to make these affordable in terms of the price point. That would include granite, stainless steel appliances, carpet, tile, and all modern amenities that residential properties would expect.
Did you want to continue on?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a Ford townhome development, or mini development, if you will.
Okay. Very good. If you would just stand by, because we're going to
absolutely.
proceed.
Yes,
Some
sir.
of my colleagues on council
Yes.
may have some questions.
Sure.
Councilmember Moody, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
What are the price points?
The planned price point, it will be under $200,000, so ideally, the price point was in the $189,000, $199,000 range. Obviously, initially with this project was conceived, it was before the pandemic, it was a little more, a year ago. So with the increase in material costs and so on and so forth, that number has shifted a little bit, but the idea is to try to keep it underneath $200,000.
Under?
Under 200,000.
Under
yeah,
200?
Per unit, yes, sir.
That's going to be a challenge.
Well,
Good.
exactly, but
Wishing you success.
thank you.
Councilmember Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How you doing there, Mr. Vaughn?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
All right. I see on your diagram here some sidewalks. Are there any sidewalks improvements that are implemented in your project right here? I don't know if that's for you or Mr. Baldwin. Are there any sidewalks that you're supposed to install on the Randolph side of the street?
Well, based on my understanding, I mean, we obviously would adhere to whatever requirements the city would impose on us, but that's just a rendering at this point. At such point when, if we get to that point where we, are given approval, then we would adhere to whatever requirements the city, placed before us. But to answer your question, yes, there would be improvements. I mean, to include some side.
Because currently, it's no sidewalks over there. It's just an
Currently,
empty
no.
lot. And
No, currently no,
Yeah.
but there will be sidewalks in relation to the individual units, as in across each individual unit.
Right, and that's a place a lot of people
Yeah.
walk at. Now you'll be implementing residential on that
Absolutely.
side of the street. It's a church. I
It's
think
right
that-
adjacent to, yes,
It's
sir.
a church that's adjacent to it, yeah. So I was just saying for pedestrian use, a sidewalk may be something that we need to look into. Is that something that we'll be looking to, Mr. Baldwin?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir, that would be a requirement.
Right, okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lloyd. Nice project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn, thank you
Thank you, sir.
for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Once again, this is a public hearing. This is your opportunity to come forward and speak about this project. If you have any concerns, please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy. I live at 3104 Garland Drive in Charleston, District 5. The public hearing, 21-376B, is a resolution granting the request of Lloyd Vaughn Jr. for a use permit for 4 townhouses at 816 Randolph Street. The parcel will be developed at a density of 12 units per acre. Since the parcel is .325 acres, Mr. Vaughn is only allowed to build 1/3 of 12, which is 4 townhouses. Randolph Street is in voting precinct 5 in District 2. Who represents District 2 Craddock on City Council? Who is reporting to the Civic Leagues in District 2? What is going to happen with the neighborhood revitalization plan with water, sewage, flood control, and roads and sidewalk replacement? Here are some facts to review before any new construction needs to be considered. The American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA categories, Prentice Place, neighborhood revitalization to include water, sewage, sewer, drainage, and roadway construction, phase 1 of 3, $6,180,000. In the work session on September the 13th, there was a handout that listed the infrastructure project with Prentice Place neighborhood improvements as one of 7 with a projected cost of $15,418,000. In the budget book, infrastructure improvements were listed as $17.8 million. Multiple projects are currently under design or construction to include portions of King Street, and it goes on. Other projects currently under design include Prentice Place. With all these plans to restore the water and sewage deficiencies, why does the elected by the people, for the people, and other people want to add a burden to the people's aged water and sewage system that is under reconstruction? Lastly, why does UP 21-17 read resolution granting the request of Lloyd Vaughn Jr. with J Investment Corporation for a use permit for 4 townhouses at 816 Randolph Street? The elected has already made a decision to approve this use permit by the wording in this resolution of granting. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to come and speak on this item can come forward. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. And Madam Clerk, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We have now come to the city manager's report, item 21-377. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting with appreciation a donation in the amount of $100 from Tidewater Baptist Women Missionary and Educational Convention, Inc., and appropriating said funds to the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for use by the Department of Social Services to support children in foster care for Christmas.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-378. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance that we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting State Homeland Security Program grant funds in the amount of $48,000 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and appropriating said funds in the FY 2022 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-379. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting developmental disability residential support funds in the amount of $28,800 from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and appropriating said funds in the FY 2022 Behavioral Health Care Services Fund to provide support for individuals with disabilities.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-380. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance that we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting Region 5 extended funds in the amount of $95,884.20 from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and appropriating said funds in the FY 2022 Behavioral Health Care Services Fund for employee retention and recruitment.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we're in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption?
Second.
Madam Clerk, well, is there any discussion amongst our members of council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-381. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the resolution that we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the grant of a utility easement to Virginia Electric and Power Company having an approximately width of 5 feet across a portion of 614 Queen Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-382. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the resolution that we are considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. A resolution to implement the 2022 calendar of city council meetings.
Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We have now come to item new business, 21-383. Vice Mayor Barnes and Dr. Whitaker. Are there any appointments to come forward?
No.
Thank you, sirs. Item 21-384, items submitted by council members. Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mayor. Since there's so much public interest in this next item, I'm going to make a motion that we suspend council's rules and allow the public to speak to this item.
Do we have a second?
Second.
That's not a,
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Point out, that, there's no need to have a suspension of rules because the public already has a right to speak on these items.
Sir, on a personnel matter, they generally do not. We generally do not have a public speaking part on these types of items that are dealing with personnel matters. In order for that to take place, sir, we must suspend the rules. The rules are such that we would have to do that.
Okay.
And Mayor, I think probably my motion initially is to suspend council rules.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle? Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
No.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
And now, Mayor, I would like to make a motion to allow the public to comment on the next agenda item, the appointment of a city attorney.
Well, we have a list of speakers, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
We need a vote on that.
Mr. Battle, I apologize, sir, I didn't see your hand. You have the floor, sir.
We're all here tonight because we're very intents in the hiring of our city attorney. Our council are basically split in this hiring. And as politics go, some strange things, and they can pull some of the strangest things out of their bag to prove their point. And that's what has happened with the council. And it has spilled over into our citizens. Now, I understand that we get very adamant about the things we believe in. And let me say, all of our council persons are good people. They're family folk, but we're not perfect, okay? And because of the time of the year, this is Christmas time, all of us should be filled with joy and laughter. We shouldn't be at this point, that Paul Battle, or that Mr. Moody, or that, we shouldn't be there. And I think because of the tension that it has caused, and I don't want dirt thrown on any of these people. They're good people. And I don't want you at one another in such a joyous time of the year. Therefore, I want to make a motion that we open this position back up to the public. I think it's best. We need to be looking at one another's kids and families, laughing and smiling and having fun and enjoying one another regardless of color or persuasion. So please, let's open this position back up and enjoy one another and let this tension go. Countries do it when they argue, they take their hand off the switch. Don't do that to one another. Don't do that. Let's just enjoy one another. So please, I'm asking that we open this position back up to the public. Thank you.
Councilmember Moody, thank you, sir. Councilmember Moody, you have the floor, sir.
Mayor, I think we have a motion on the floor that I made to allow the public to comment on this agenda item, and I believe it received a second.
It did, and a consensus.
The only thing we need is a vote.
We already took a vote.
No, we didn't take a vote for that.
Not for that.
No, we didn't.
No.
Yeah, we did take a vote.
Not to allow the public to speak. We took a vote to change the rules.
Right. And allow the public to speak. That was the purpose for suspending the rules, to allow the public.
It had to be two different motions.
So
Mr. Parliamentarian, does that have?
we don't need the public to speak.
Yeah, hold on, sir. We've already dealt with that motion. We've already dealt with that motion.
We did not.
Go ahead, sir.
Conflict of interest, what I would suggest is I defer to the city clerk.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Council members, Mr. Moody made a motion and received a second to suspend council rules to allow speakers. You all voted to do that. Now you need a motion to allow speakers to speak. All you did was suspend the rules to allow it. Now you need a motion to allow it.
All right. Do we have a motion to allow the speakers to come forward at this time?
I've already made it.
And you
We
made
have
the
a
motion?
motion and
We have
a
a motion
second.
and a second.
Why do we need the speakers to speak? Because we already-
We have a motion and a second on the floor, sir. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barnes,
So the motion is to, allow people to speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
No, because it has its point. If we take up what I brought to the board, it has no point.
Correct. Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
No.
Mr. Woodard?
Of course, I want to hear the public, but it was already
Sir?
stated
Sir,
from
we-
Paul,
we asked
from
for a
Councilman Battle that, you know, to
It's
open
a
up the
yes or no,
process.
sir.
You know,
You have
to open up the process. Please don't cut me off. Please. We already want to open up the process, but yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a registered speaker. The first speaker is Miss Elizabeth Simmons. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, before we hear the speakers, we have another motion on the floor.
Okay?
Okay, by Councilman Battle, to open up, before we hear the speakers, to open up the process. Is there a second?
Second.
From anyone to do that? Mr. Moody? Okay. You leave. Mayor, can I call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to step off the dais. I have a conflict of interest, and Deputy City Attorney Jeff Miller will take my place.
And can, Madam Clerk, can you, just so that we're all clear, the motion that we're voting on?
The motion that you're voting on at this time is to open the process back up to receive applicants for the city attorney position.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Barnes?
No.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
No.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
This has been approved by a vote of 5-2. So at this point, you do not need to hear speakers.
Thank you, ma'am. So we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which, are there any additional other items that council members want to submit? We're still under items submitted by council, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Battle.
Being that it is such a wonderful time of the year, and we're in the mood now, let's see, can we shovel some money to our employees and our retiring people, our retiring folks? And then that would really make it a wonderful, joyous situation. So I'd like to ask my fellow council persons to search their hearts and give $10,000 to all our retirees and all our employees. I'm sorry.
What?
$1,000. I'm really in the giving mood. But anyway, $1,000. Now, we had a program where we gave $500 to folk that took the COVID shot. Now, 84% of them chose to, and 14% chose not to. But I'm suggesting that we just give them all the $500 extra dollars, and those that didn't take it, give them $1,000. They have the right not to take it if that's what they want, and to give the retirees $1,000. It's such a joyous time of the year. I truly hope that my fellow council members understand and help put this pep in our citizens' step and those smiles on their faces. So that's what I'm proposing.
Councilmember Moody, sir, you have the floor.
I'd like to ask my colleague, I don't really understand the motion. Could you state that motion?
The motion is to give all our retirees $1,000 and to give the 84% that got $500 for taking the COVID shot, give them $500, and those that didn't, they have that right. Give them $1,000. Let's treat everybody the same. Let's not do that. Have folk disgruntled. They didn't treat us like they treated them. Just treat them all the same.
Councilman, are you suggesting that we give general wage retirees and police and fire retirees?
Yes, sir. They're part of this.
So that's your motion?
Yes, sir. Give them all. I don't play the, let's do them and leave them out. Let's just give them all and live happily ever after.
I second that.
Before we go into the motion in second, we have some other speakers. Dr. Whitaker, and then Vice Mayor Barnes, and then Councilman Woodard. Sir, you have the floor.
I would think before we would act on something like that, that we would at least have our city manager, chief financial officer, give us a analysis so that we make sure we're doing what's fiscally responsible. I mean, I understand Mr. Battle's heart, but I think it's a way we have to do it in decency and in order.
And you're right, sir. And if Mr. Battle makes a motion like that, he have rehearsed all lines 1,000 times. So you guys go ahead and tell us where we're going to get the money.
Vice Mayor Barnes, sir, did you want the floor?
When you say retirees, you talking about those that's currently retiring or those who
that
are already retired?
From the city of Portsmouth.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Woodard.
That was a okay. I understand the question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
I mean,
Mayor.
the answer to the question.
Mr. Bowden, I know you're in a joyous mood. It's a joyous occasion, you know. I get it, you know, but I definitely want our city manager to do her due diligence, our CFO, Mimi, to do her due diligence. And while you're doing that, let's make sure we look into these teachers too, because the neighboring cities has gave them a bonus.
They have their own public.
I don't care if it's $100, you know, or something. Let's see what we can do to make sure we show our teachers some type of appreciation, because they had a hard year so far, you know. So let's make sure we do what we got to do while we're looking into those retirees.
I get it.
Well, Councilwoman Lucas Burke, then you, Vice Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I want to let everyone know, if you're not on our city blast, email blast, that Celebrate Health Care is going to be presenting its family affair at the Children's Museum of Virginia.
It's
You can
a point
bring
of-
the.
Wait,
it's a
hold
point
on,
of
hold
order. It's a motion. and
Hold
a
on,
second.
right. We didn't close out the motion that was on the table. So we first need to close that out before we move on to the additional items submitted by council. So, Vice Mayor, you have the floor then. I would like for the city manager to speak to that concern as well.
To go, because I think there may have been an addition to the motion. As far as the teachers, we fully funded education this year for the first time in history, and I know we have a school board member in here listening, so hopefully he takes that back to the school board and say that most of council recommends that you guys give the teachers and the full staff at Portsmouth Public School a bonus, because I see the hard work that they do when it comes down to the janitors, the food workers, everybody. Bus drivers who are having a tough time, but they're doing what they can. My children ride the bus, and I see the hard work that they put in as well. So I just wanted to say that part.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And Madam City Manager.
Yes, just for clarification purposes, I think we need a definition of what retired encompasses, because when we talk about general wage employees as well as police and fire, that goes back until the day the city was established. So what period of time would we be looking at to try to bring back an analysis of what impact that's going to have? So that we need in order to be able to respond adequately to the request.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Manager. So if I may, listening to the discussion, if I could call for a consensus to ask for the manager and her financial team to come back with information to provide to us as a council on moving forward, perhaps, or making a decision in this matter?
Just a point of order, could you ask Mr. Battle to withdraw his motion?
Mr. Battle, would you please consider withdrawing your motion at this time to allow the city manager and her team to put forth the information so that we can all review it and make an informed decision?
Well, I'm bringing this up because I was looking at a possible fast-track situation so these funds could reach them by the middle of next week.
We're in the holiday spirit, but I'll just have to, there is no way we can get this before the next pay cycle and even after that, because with staff limitations, we're already working on getting the police retention. After that is going to be the frontline employees, and then after that, you're talking about in the end of January or beginning of February.
But have we made a decision about police retention?
Yes.
Oh,
You made that decision.
okay. Well, if they're getting funds, then maybe we would need to include them. We would need to, if we're already giving a group something, we would need to include them. This is for the groups that are not receiving anything. And it would be nice if we could fast track it.
Mr. Battle, and we certainly appreciate all that you've said today, but in order for us to move the agenda forward, we need to take the motion off of the table, and then we need to proceed with the request of asking the city manager and her team to bring back information.
We'll do that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Anything for my citizens.
Thank you, sir. So, Madam City Manager, you and your team will bring back information for us to discuss on this matter at the next council meeting or next work session?
So just to be clear, we will set criteria for what retirees we will include within a time period, and then we will bring some options and costs back to what that looks like for the city.
Yes, ma'am. That would be the request.
And just for clarification, Councilman Battle is withdrawing his motion and Councilman Moody is withdrawing his second.
Yes.
Okay. And not to jump in front of Councilwoman Lucas Burke, give her report, but you all have voted to take the process back. I need to know for how long so we can get a new advertisement out.
I think we begin the process, but I think 60 days would be an acceptable time frame.
Yes, sir.
Is everyone in agreement with 60 days?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for the clarification. Now, Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's start again. For those who don't have the email blast, it was sent through our city email, through our marketing department. Celebrate Healthcare is presenting, it's a family fair at the Children's Museum of Virginia. It's going to be on this Sunday, December 19th, between 1 and 4. You can bring the children to get vaccinated, and they will also get a tour of the museum that'll be free. They'll also be offering COVID, flu vaccinations, and boosters for persons who are interested in, as well as the rapid COVID test. So that's at our Children's Museum on this Sunday, the 19th, between 1 and 4. And there's an additional notation, an update came out that's not on the email blast. If you have children that are 16 and 17-year-old teens, they can receive the booster shot 6 months after they receive their second vaccination shot. So take advantage of that, get out, and of course, Santa Claus will be there as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other items submitted by Council? Vice Mayor Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just wanted to talk about a couple of events that I went to. The Safe Harbor ribbon cutting. I was actually, the mayor wasn't there, so I took his place and actually cut the ribbon. We had Councilwoman Lisa Lucas Burt there, and Councilman Chris Woodard there as well. Also, community and schools had their yearly breakfast where they try to raise money. Good organization, was able to attend. I know myself, Councilman Woodard, and the mayor was there as well. Also, I want to talk about some good things that's going on in Portsmouth. As many of you know, before I was on council or even in office, I was running a nonprofit organization for youth, and we do year-round sports for the city of, for kids in the city of Portsmouth. Currently, for our basketball program, we have 300 children signed up on the city of Portsmouth, but what makes it significant is a lot of people say that people don't want to come to Portsmouth. And the significance of it is that we have children from Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News, Chesapeake, and they all want to come and be a part of this program in Portsmouth. Yeah. So there are some good things going on in Portsmouth, and there's people that want to come here. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. Also on Saturday, I'm having my 4th annual Christmas giveaway out Dale Homes. That is for the children of Portsmouth. Anybody's in need. So if you are in need, please contact me on Facebook, DeAndre A. Bonds. And lastly, I did want to mention, although we're not going on with the process as far as the attorney tonight, I do want the citizens to understand the significance of what happened. And what I mean by the significance of what happened is that we have children getting shot every day in this city. Young lady right here shaking her head, her 19-year-old daughter was shot in the head. But we have Mayor Glover and Councilman Moody who are more concerned about who we hire for attorney than our babies getting shot in the head.
Hold on.
So
order, please.
So please make sure that you understand that. Thank you.
Mayor, you want to?
Hold on. We must have order, and we must keep everyone in decorum. We must keep everything in decorum in this chamber. Mr. Moody, please. That can't happen again in this chamber.
Let me.
Before you say something, I need to speak on behalf of the citizens. As the mayor and leader of this city, this was a difficult week. It was a difficult week because I swore an oath to conduct myself with accountability and fair representation to all of the citizens of Portsmouth. I will not support any applicant that is unqualified or unfit to serve as our city attorney. The majority, let me be clear, the majority of my colleagues believe that it is acceptable to disregard facts and sound judgment. This is local government. Sir,
Mr. Mayor.
Sir, I have the floor. Sir, I have the
don't
floor.
talk about your
No,
colleagues.
I have the floor. Sir, I have the floor, and you are out of order right now. This is local government. This is local government that is for the people and by the people. We serve at the pleasure.
About this, but not about
We
the crime.
we serve at the pleasure of citizens, and as such, we are compelled to operate in an honest and transparent manner. Moreover, we cannot overlook the conflict that exists. Our vice mayor was recently represented by the applicant on November 18th at 10 a.m. in court. This is the same day that that applicant interviewed with us that night. The same day. There was no mention of any conflict whatsoever by the vice mayor nor the applicant. Lawyers, because my daughter is one and she's a barred attorney, lawyers have an ethical and professional duty, and so do these council members that I serve with, have a ethical and professional duty to disclose any appearance of potential conflicts. Ultimately, we, each and every one of us, sir, each and every one of us, have a duty to hire and appoint the best qualified candidate to leave our office of city attorney. And I will defend that to the end of my days, so help me God. Mr. Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. To Mr. Barnes's comment to the mayor and myself, that's about as low as I've seen. I've had friends that have been shot and killed, so I'm going to ask you to take that comment back because it's disgraceful and it's demeaning to someone who has the title of a vice mayor of this city.
I'm not trying to cut you off, my colleague. I love all of you.
I've got the floor, Councilman Battle.
But please, let's not do this.
Mr. Battle, sir,
I've got the floor.
he has the floor. Once he gets done, you have an opportunity to have the floor, sir. Please finish.
That's the second time that Mr. Barnes has insinuated that people sitting on this dais are indifferent to people being killed in our city, and it's simply not true. And I think it's disgraceful, and if you're a man of honor, I would suggest that you apologize to me and to the mayor.
Mr. Barnes, you have the floor, sir.
I don't apologize. As I said before, you see this man wrote a speech about the lawyer, but hasn't wrote one speech about our kids getting shot in the streets.
We need to have order in here. Are there any other comments that need to be made at this time? We're not taking any public comments at this time. And we will not have any more outbursts, because if we have outbursts, that goes against the decorum of our meeting. And we will have order in the meeting, or you will be removed from the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
May all of you have a wonderful holiday. May God bless you all. And may God bless us as well. And all I want to do is to smile at watching you guys be happy. May God bless all of you. Thank you.
In addition to that, I wanted to take a moment. Councilmember Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to give it's not really a shout out, but I just wanted to let everyone know about the incident that happened at IC Norcom on Friday. That was actually teaching in the building, and it was very scary. It was very scary, but I just want to give kudos to the administrators that was there, on Dr. Foster, his team, the resource officers, the police officers, the sheriffs, for making sure that our kids were safe. They surrounded and secured the perimeter, checked 60-plus classrooms, and, it was scary, but, they made sure that we all were safe. It was a lot of parents that was concerned. It was a lot of rumors that was out there about possible threats, but our police department, our resource officer, David Long, they did a fantastic job of making sure that we got home safe. And one thing about it, we can get our kids to return home here in Portsmouth. It's always a good day if we can get that to happen. So, shout out to them, and, shout out to our Portsmouth Public Schools for making sure that they're well prepared.
Thank you, sir. And one thing I did want to mention in addition to that, last weekend in the city of Portsmouth, I want to just show how proud I am of all of you who showed up for the Christmas celebration in our city. There were so many reenactors, so many people that volunteered and gave their time. I saw children and families frolicking and walking up and down the street. There were carolers singing wonderful Christmas songs. And if you didn't get the opportunity to come down and experience, I call it Christmas in Wonderland in Old Town. It was a wonderful event. And on behalf of the City Council, our city leadership team, our Parks and Recreation Department, I want to say to you all, you did a magnificent job of celebrating the season. And I hope that we continue to grow in that area and continue to make it about the community coming together to celebrate Portsmouth, because we have a wonderful, historic port city. And it will be what we determine that it will be. And I'm just glad that we have citizens, families, friends, everybody who cares about our city and wants to make it the best that it can possibly be. So I want to say to everyone, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy Hanukkah. Ms. Jones? Ms. Jones?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any report on your pending items, ma'am?
I do.
Okay.
One, staff received a proposal today regarding the topographic survey and mapping of Mount Calvary and Lincoln cemeteries as the first step in a series of actions to determine maintenance requirements. We will review the proposals and identify a potential funding source and present to council at the first meeting in January.
Thank you, ma'am.
What, I have a couple
Go
others.
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, can I follow up on, since she's speaking on Mount Calvary, can I follow up on?
Are you done first, ma'am?
That first one.
You're done with the first one? So, yes, sir.
Okay. The RFP, where are we in that process?
For
the Mount Calvary and the Lincoln Cemetery?
It's done. It's already, we've got the initial, it was an annual contractor that we used so that we could get it done quickly. And so we're going to bring that back to council at the first meeting.
Now the RFP that you're speaking of, are you
Just gives us the assessment.
It's the assessment?
It's the assessment.
Okay.
It's just the assessment that tells us what we need to, where the graves are.
Okay.
So that we can then take the next step, which would be to put out an RFP.
Okay.
For someone to do the work.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The next item is the city received 2 responses to the disparity study, RFP, and based on the city attorney's response, we will move forward with compiling the evaluation committee.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
When you said based on the city attorney's response, I may have missed an email was sent out regarding
Yes.
the issue that I raised?
That's correct, and Jeff can respond to that.
Where are we on, right?
Attorney Miller, can you respond to that, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening. The email provided that council's role can be to appoint one member of the review committee for the RFP. And so that's the process that the manager's referencing that will begin shortly.
And that member would be from the minority contracting committee, Mr. Mayor?
If that's council's will.
If that's council, we decide who that committee member is. So it doesn't have to be, we can determine what that person or who that person will be, and they will be representing council on that committee.
If there's no objection from council, Mr. Mayor, I would like to serve on that committee.
I hear the request. Dr. Whitaker has indicated he would like to serve as the committee member on the committee. Do we need to have a consensus for that? All in favor of that, or do we need to take a vote?
Only if someone objects. We're ready to move forward. So
Okay.
if Councilman Dr. Whitaker is the choice, we're going to move forward.
I don't have any objection to that matter. Can I get a show of hands from my colleagues if they have no objection? No objection? It's only one committee member.
I don't have any objections.
Yeah, so how did you come to that it's just one?
Well, it has to do with the size of the committee overall. I think council can't be the majority of the committee. So that's why we're at one. If we're a larger committee.
So if more than one council, I mean, so there's no regulation or policy or
No.
nothing. So if more than one council member would like to serve up there, then that is possible.
Yeah, as long as it's a manageable committee, size-wise.
Okay, Councilmember Moody, you have a question, sir.
Is that a liaison position on the committee?
No, sir.
So what's the responsibilities of that member?
It would be equal to any other evaluating committee member.
In determining what?
In determining the criteria that's in the disparity study and evaluating which contractor meets those criteria.
So that person would be in the process of selecting a contractor?
One of many. They would be one of many on the committee providing their evaluation of the proposals, and to which the purchasing officer would take those evaluations into consideration.
Okay. I can't support that.
Mr. Attorney Miller, and that's in, like I said, I didn't see the letter, but that's in line with procurement, the Procurement Act for Virginia.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Essentially, council can't control the procurement in this specific instance because it's a council request for, in furtherance of council policy.
You said council,
Request for the disparity study. This is all right. In furtherance of council policy, we think there's a narrow exception where council can have members of the committee. What council can't do is control the entire
oh,
procurement.
right. Okay. Thank you.
So perhaps we could have further discussion about other members that may want to participate, but as it is right now, I think Dr. Whitaker has shown a desire to be on the committee, and it looks like the majority is in agreement of that.
Okay, and just so that we can move this along, if there is going to be another council person interested, we'd like to have that information by the end of the week.
I volunteer, so we can add some woman-owned looks and feels to this position.
Interesting.
Yes, thank you.
So Councilwoman Lucas Burke, are we all in agreement with Councilwoman Lucas Burke joining the committee as well? Show of hands. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And the last item I have is to inform the council that we have received an unsolicited proposal. Staff is in the process of reviewing it and determining next steps.
Unsolicited proposal for what?
Project in the city.
Oh, it can't be identified?
No, at this point, we are not at liberty to share
Okay.
additional information.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you and your team for all the work. I know you came here in midstream, but I want to, on behalf of our city council, thank you for your professionalism, for your hard work, and bringing the team together. And I think that Portsmouth's light is brighter because you and your team are doing the work that they're doing. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
To our city manager, on the unsolicited, can we discuss that in closed session?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Not at this point.
Uh,
I
to-
will give a update as to what that process looks like
Okay.
and ensure that you are informed every step of the way,
Okay.
as much as we can. Because it's unsolicited, we have to determine a few things before we can go forward. Once we do that, then there's set policy and set rules that we have to adhere
Okay.
to. And I just want to make sure that we're following the book on that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. We have now come to item, go ahead. Councilman Battle, sorry, sir.
Our economic development person, Robert Moore, in the last 2 years, we've done $1.2 billion worth of business. That equates to $12 million plus a year. In the last 5 years, he's done over $2 billion worth of economic development. And they are steady coming. And I want you to know that it won't be long before we rescind some of those taxes on your backs. Okay? Trust me.
Congratulations, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir. We now have come to item 21-386, non-agenda speakers. And Madam Clerk, would you remind the speakers of the speaker rules one more time, please?
City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first non-agenda speaker for this evening is Ms. LaToya Battle. Ms. Battle, if you would come forward, you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, members of the City Council. I'm here today to speak about the violence that is plaguing our community. You all sit here as elected officials to make decisions for our city, but some of you are oblivious to just how dangerous our city is. This isn't just another article in the newspaper or another 30-second story on the news. It is our daily lives. I just want you all to understand how close to home that this is. The day after Thanksgiving, my daughters, and son's best friend were driving down down Portsmouth Boulevard. On the same block I grew up, where my mom owns a salon and where our family owns 3 homes, when 2 cars driving down the street began shooting. My cousin and his 2 children were walking to their front door and had to fall to the ground. My car with my children in it got struck on the hood and windshield. My children, who aren't gang affiliated, who are both in college, one a senior with plans to work for the MLB, and a freshman who received a full scholarship to several colleges but got a full ride to Spelman University and also a straight A student there. So it was not meant for them. It was not the wrong place at the wrong time situation. They were driving home from shopping when a bullet struck the car. Had it been 2 inches in the other direction, my child would have been dead or gravely injured. The future gone. There have been other instances of violence in that same neighborhood where my grandmother was born, raised, where my mother lives, and where my children visit and play outside. But now they are no longer able to leave the backyard in fear that they could they could fall victim to these shootings. There have been 2 murders of children and numerous shootings in that same neighborhood, in a lot of neighborhoods in Portsmouth, where police are slow to respond but quick to leave, and will look at you and shrug their shoulders when they hear the gunshots 10 minutes after a shooting that you're reporting. I too did not take the shooting serious because I did not feel directly affected until my friends and associates began losing their children, until my children started losing their friends, but definitely when my child almost lost her life. It's one thing when it's isolated incident, but it becomes random and consistent, when excuse me. It becomes random and consistent when it could easily be one of us could be the next victim, excuse me. That makes you want to figure out why and how it can be fixed. Well, at least that's how it makes me feel. You all asked us to vote for you to better our community, schools, and bring opportunity to where are all of these promises, excuse me. You asked us to vote yes for a casino to bring revenue. Open another gym, rec center, where there's 2 city blocks of land, but only 1 building is utilized. The most I've seen our city receive since the most of you have took office is what, 3 to 4 green clean car washes. Yeah, that was a great idea because everyone needs a clean car when riding in a funeral procession. You hear about the violence in large cities, but not cities our size. Does any of what I'm saying not alarm you? I am afraid for my kids to play outside. I am afraid for my kids to leave home. I am afraid for my kids to go to school. I am just afraid for my kids. So I ask all of you, what are we going to do? When does it become personal for you all? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excuse me. My name is Battle as well, and trust me, it's personal.
Yes.
They are my grandchildren.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bracy Parr. Mr. Parr, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. My name is Bracy Parr, and I reside in Craddock. I am the president of the Craddock Civic League. We count 94 paid members on our rolls. Could I ask those members and advocates to stand here tonight? Thank you. For several years, we have been implementing a data-driven approach to improve our community, increasing lighting, protecting and promoting recreation opportunities like our skate park and Paradise Nature Creek. We've been doing placemaking through grants and standing against criminal blight with the help of the city attorney and the city manager. We've been increasing our community networks with Bon Secours and the Elizabeth River Project, and we've been celebrating our community through uplifting events like our Juneteenth Jam, our 4th of July celebration, and a joint national night out with historic Truxton. If you know the history of our two communities, that is very, very significant. In the last several weeks, we've had 2 murders and a shooting in broad daylight in Afton Square, which, coupled with the child that was shot in Afton Square over the summer, calls for action. We have 4 strategies to present for council's consideration. I want to give them. As a business person, I kind of understand you need the low-hanging fruit, from the easiest to the most difficult to implement, but we believe they are all important. Number 1, we struggle with absentee landlords all over the city. They keep children living in squalor, the children of their tenants. These lead to health disparities later in life and bring down property values and increase poverty in our neighborhood. I would ask that you call on the city assessor to publicly publish the public information on property owners and their contact information on the city's website. This is standard practice for 5 other localities within Hampton Roads and would allow all civic leagues to hold their neighbors accountable. Second, we would like you to implement novel technologies such as license plate readers, ShotSpotter, and subsidies for Ring cameras, which have had great success in solving crime and reducing both violent and property crime while protecting civil rights and privacy for citizens. Third, we would like a return to community policing, such as our NEAT offices that we had in the past. And you'll hear this from communities all over Portsmouth about the NEAT offices that were connected to different areas. This allows for better geographic response, better relationships, and better accountability for our police officers. Lastly, we're asking you to revitalize Afton Square. There were 2 studies conducted in the early 2000s that eerily predicted what is coming true. that if without action, the square would continue to have a blighting effect on the neighborhood and increase violence. We've seen this happen. There are blueprints for success, and we want to join the rosters of success like the transformation in South Norfolk, in Phoebus, and in southeastern Newport News. With this, we can solve issues within our city, and this body has expressed a willingness to look at root causes and systemic issues of crime. There is a pharmacy desert south of 264, but one retail bank, but one grocery store, but one dentist, and not a single healthcare facility south of Interstate 264, where Craddock, Truxton, Cavalier Manor, and other communities are located. The Civic League is forming a 501c3 community development corporation to go after private funds and grants to work hand in hand with the city to revitalizing our community. The steps are clear, and it's not just the 7 of you. It's hundreds of neighbors, and I would ask our neighbors to stand again. This is the village that will drive this renaissance, and we're ready to roll up our sleeves, and we're in it for the long haul. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that has ever done so." Thank you for your time, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Marjorie Mayfield Jackson, our next speaker. I'm sorry, Mr. Godaldig-Yatrovsky. I stepped over, but you know what, Marjorie, go ahead. Ladies first, and Mr. Godaldig-Yatrovsky will understand, I'm sure.
Thank you. I'm Marjorie Mayfield Jackson. I'm here as Executive Director of the Elizabeth River Project, and we are proud to be a partner with the city at Paradise Creek Nature Park. And it's a great project where we see thousands of school children and thousands of members of the public from across the region who come to learn about what they can do for our home river and enjoy those beautiful 40 acres that we take care of together. And I'm here to support the Craddock Civic League in just asking for your help with the crime in Craddock, because it's too great a part of the city to be faced with that. So just thank you for your support in that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Mark Godaldig-Yatrovsky, sir, and I apologize for missing you in the order.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and other neighbors. If I have to be bumped, I feel honored to be bumped by Ms. Marjorie Mayfield Jackson. And I'm a contributor to the Elizabeth River Project, so this is another small contribution. I am really moved by Councilmember Battle's magnanimous offer to council to revisit the decision on the city attorney. And so I want to show some of the same magnanimity. I'm going to depart from my intended remarks to say a little something about crime. It's hard to believe, it's been about 6 years since I stood at the front of this chamber with Mayor Wright and a number of important community leaders here. And the subject was this self-same crime that plagues us. We're not alone in that regard, but that's not really a distinction to brag about. it's so easy to talk about crime, and I even had a speaking part back at that, I don't know, press conference, I guess it was called, and I'm embarrassed because when I reflect on the remarks I made then, I feel that I was extremely naive, thinking that, okay, finally, now we have momentum, we have community engagement, and we are going to actually make progress. It didn't happen. And it wasn't for lack of good intentions. And it wasn't because people didn't say things that needed saying. But in dealing with crime, it comes down to the doing. And Councilmember Whitaker talks frequently about the poverty problem in our city. And that is one of the root causes of this being an entrenched feature of our society. We have to care about eliminating poverty. The one thing COVID did for us was bring an infusion, a massive infusion of money that went into the pockets of ordinary people, that went into the pockets of family. The child tax credit that came about as the result of COVID is credited for reducing child poverty by 50%. But we're looking at it disappearing. We have to do more. We really need a Marshall Plan for the cities in the United States. This is not something Portsmouth can do alone, but Portsmouth can do important things. Mr. Farr's suggestions regarding Craddock and South Side, they are a piece of it, but there have to be many pieces, and there have to be many hands, and there has to be continuing attention on this problem. Talk is cheap, action takes work. So let us not turn away from the task. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Mr. Bill Dotson. Mr. Dotson, sir, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, Bill Dotson. I originally came to bring some information I wanted to bring, but this lady's story far oversees mine. I'd like to yield my time to her.
Hi, my name is Shannon Carmack.
Yes, sir.
I stay at 1121 Fayette Street. On December 17th, my 19-year-old daughter was shot in the head. And because of that, she's never going to have a normal life again. She was supposed to go into the military, but she can't anymore because she was an innocent victim of a drive-by shooting. Because of this, my home was destroyed, my daughter's life was destroyed. She has years of recovery ahead of her. I have not, I raised all three of my daughters by myself with no assistance while I was in the military. My daughter was looking forward to going to the military herself, but because of her injury, she's never going to be able to do this anymore. I have wrote emails. I was not nasty to anyone when it happened. My car was destroyed. I couldn't go back to work. Now I had to come out of my pocket to do a rental car because I have $2,000 worth of damage done to my car. I'm not even going to talk about the medical bills that my daughter has in front of her right now, and she's only 19. None of my daughters was in gangs, associated with gangs. They was honor graduates from high school, and I did that by myself. Now I'm coming to y'all. We need to do something when it comes to this area, because it could have went left and my daughter could have died. And if my daughter would have died, you know, it's nothing, we can't bring her back. And we need to get some type of city, you know, neighborhood watch or something out there. Not when, after my daughter got shot on the 17th, that Sunday, my daughter was shot on a Wednesday. That Sunday, it was another shooting right there on the boulevard, right around the corner from my house. A 17-year-old boy was shot. I'm coming to y'all because this city has went down in the last 2 years since this pandemic has started. It doesn't make any sense that my 4-year-old grandson knows the difference between a bullet, a gunshot, and a firecracker. My daughter, she does not sleep at night anymore. She stays up until daylight comes through the blinds. So when she does that, I have to stay up because that's what a mother's job is. And I'm coming to y'all. We need to get some type of neighborhood watch in my neighborhood of Brighton. Because if we don't, it's gonna continue going down. There was a young lady shot in the face right around the corner from my house. She was 24. She left 5 kids. She's gone. I can only imagine how her family feel because I know how I feel as a mother. I'm not gonna cry because I have to stay strong for my family as well as my community. But something needs to be done. We don't need the police to come when it's done after someone's laying on the ground. We don't need that anymore. We need someone to step up to the plate and let it be known that we're not gonna take this anymore. Because if we continue allowing these young kids out here doing anything, it's gonna only keep getting worse. And I don't want to be a victim anymore. I don't wanna have to lay in my bed and wonder if a bullet's gonna come through my window or if I'm gonna walk outside and see another person in the street dead. And it doesn't make any sense and it's not fair to our community. And I feel like something needs to be done because I can't talk for everybody. I can only speak for myself right now. And I am really hurting right now because my child is hurting. And I cannot do this by myself anymore. It's hard out here, and y'all, please, y'all just need to help our community and not worry about the other things. I understand y'all want revenue here, but we need to get the crime rate down before we bring any casino here. We need to get the crime rate down because if y'all bring that casino here, the crime rate is gonna go up. Thank you.
Ma'am, if you could remain after the meeting so we can get some information from you, okay? Thank you for sharing your story. Our next speaker is Mr. Dan Evans. Mr. Evans, sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, manager, staff. My remarks have changed somewhat too. Your Build One Portsmouth plan took a big step tonight by putting off the decision and reopening the city attorney position. You did such a good job. The Wavy News people had to leave early to go find a new lead. I want you all to remember that you have a very good city attorney now, someone who's a lifelong resident of Portsmouth and has chosen to raise his family here. And that should matter in your decision as well. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Sharita. And please forgive me if I mispronounce it. Is it Tarpley? Tarpley? Okay. Ms. Tarpley, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna do this again. Yet another storm has arisen as prophecy abundantly grows. I, for one, once again, Sharita Tarpley, am quote-unquote non-agenda. Would like to reiterate advancement of technical training for those who meet criteria, health-wise and education-wise. Misconception is misconceiving. I wish that the city of Portsmouth had a better understanding of the uprising of misappropriated revenue as well as the quote-unquote cost to be the boss. Problematic gambling casinos have been a major infrastructural downfall in several other states and society, as it is written in truth. Revenue is being misunderstood. New variant, new death toll. Different variants of death toll. Considering this is and always a recessive state, supply and demand should remain a factor. America has no extra building blocks to waste, and Virginia should be more than willing to deliver those stepping stones to places in dire need of the Healthcare Decision Act. Let me reiterate. This act expresses inabilities to make decisions in reference to people affected by COVID. Might I add our concerns? The definition of social policy means represents summation of acts of government deliberately designed to improve welfare of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Miss Kimberly Thornton or Thornton? Okay. The next speaker is Mr. Harry Taylor. Mr. Taylor, sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Harry Taylor. I live at 957 Green Street. So I was reviewing the Portsmouth crime prevention strategy. I'm going to start with a couple of the good things on the list. I'd like to thank the council members that are involved in public education, keeping the kids involved in after-school activities like different kinds of sports. The opportunity that they showed in the program was also adding some parks and recreations jobs to help keeping kids busy and off the streets. Those are fantastic things. Another thing they talk about is better education for police officers to deal with mental illness so that there's less opportunities for a violent confrontation. That's very important. I think that's also very good. Now I'm going to move into some of the things that are not so great that I saw there. One of the things I'm more concerned about than anything else, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, is how we're treating people with mental illness. There's a perception when I'm looking at the crime strategy that people with mental illness are often the perpetrators, and we need to know how to mitigate some of the issues that they may be involved with so that instead of arresting them, we're trying to rehabilitate them, which is good. But the fact of the matter is that people with mental illness are often the victims. They're an entire victim class often that criminals will target because they know that they're easy to take advantage of and that they often have a hard time communicating with law enforcement to report the crimes. And so that can often lead to a perpetuation of drug abuse and also human trafficking, which we talk about the crimes going on here. We know there's human trafficking going on, but we don't talk about it very often. I guess in this area, we have enough problems with gun violence that we talk mostly about that, but there are other kinds of crimes going on. Another question that came up was the use of mobile health services in order to bring health care to people in the community to help assist with people with mental illness issues. My concern with that is if it's a rotating paramedic or someone who's not properly trained as a PhD in psychology or psychiatry, or MD in psychiatry, that could be very dangerous because if you're not tracking your patients individually, you may be giving them inappropriate amounts of medication. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all where you can drive into someone's neighborhood and say, I think you need a little more lithium. Like, this is something you have to be very careful with, otherwise someone could overdose, they could die, or it could cause a traumatic situation where they get lost or they end up having harm come to them. So that's what I have to say about mental illness. There's a part in there talking about case preparation, making sure that the city attorney's office and the Commonwealth attorney are working with the police department. My concern about this is often when I hear that you're trying to increase conviction percentages, that's a dog whistle for we're trying to get poor people to plea bargain instead of actually giving them due process. This is something that happens where you see someone, you don't think you're going to get the conviction, so you're going to terrify them, and in Virginia you can outright lie to them and intimidate them into getting a confession. This is a problem because what you're doing is you're targeting the lower level offenders. They don't have the resources. You're not targeting the kingpins at the top. We also have a problem with the Commonwealth attorney not always letting people know whenever violent offenders, especially in domestic violence, are released. So the victims find out sometimes in a grocery store that the person who attacked them is no longer in jail and is a threat to their family and themselves. That's completely unacceptable. We need to demand higher levels of work ethic from people in our community who are supposed to be protecting us and bringing these cases to trial. So I'm going to move over toward a hidden class of victims, and I don't think I have enough time to talk about this, but we talk about the violence that has happened. Let's talk about some of the crimes that people don't talk about very much, like the fact that abuse and neglect has increased 600% over the last year. We have domestic violence is increasing. One of the things that is very concerning to me is that forcible rape is being shown as a decrease, but whenever you look at the overall counts for sexual assault, it's showing not applicable. And the reason for this is because of a legal trick in the Virginia Code where forcible rape is only considered whenever a man rapes a woman. Whenever a man is raped by a man, or a man rapes a trans person, or a woman is raped by a woman, it is not considered forcible rape under the code. It's a different classification of sexual assault. If you add in all the different classifications, rape is actually increased by 4% as reportable. As we know, rape is often going unreported, so I would speculate that we've actually increased about 20 or 30%. Criminal organizations in the city, we need to stop looking at them as gangs. We need to look at them as terrorist organizations. Terrorist organizations on the other side of the world often use rape as a weapon of intimidation, and that's what we're seeing with the violence going on in this area. We're seeing people using intimidation against witnesses and against families, saying that they'll know who's in charge, and that's what they're doing. I'm out of time. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Mr. Steve Carroll. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Evening, Mayor, members of council. Steve Carroll, 3112 River Edge Drive. I too was heavily prepared to speak on the crime problem. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, but I am going to touch on what has just transpired here tonight. We have an image problem in this city. And the reason we have an image problem is because we have a credibility problem. And it's manifested in our school performance, our crime rate, and how our city government functions. Now, straight to the point, I'm a little confused, but if indeed we've suspended the consideration of this current candidate for city attorney, well and good. Had we continued, we had 2 individuals on council tonight that posed what I consider, and I think a reasonable person would consider, a conflict of interest. One member of council right now has a $5.3 million lawsuit leveled against this city. That individual has no business in discussion or voting on any city attorney, because that city attorney may very well consider that case. Settlement, taking it to court, whatever. The other individual at this point is somewhat of a moot point now. Now, it is germane because this is going to come up again That individual, I expect to recuse themselves from any discussion or voting on filling the city attorney position. And I can be more detailed if it pleases council. I think I've made my point. As for the crime, yeah, it is personal to me too. A friend of mine was shot in the chest right here on High Street. He survived, delivering crackers to a business. And some little punk told him to give it up, and he wasn't the kind of person that was going to give it up. And he ended up getting shot in the chest, and it's by the grace of God he's still alive. I'm a gun enthusiast. Guns are not the problem. Criminals are the problem, and I've said this till I'm blue in the face. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouths, not council and not citizens, when it comes to addressing crime. You have to put people in office who are going to do something about it on council and in the city attorney's or the Commonwealth's attorney's office. My suggestion to you and my expectation is do what I've done. You have to call it out. And this is not unique to Portsmouth. This is going on across the country. Lax enforcement of our laws, activist Commonwealth's attorneys, DAs, who selectively, through their own bias, refuse to prosecute criminals or soft pedal that prosecution. And I'm here to tell you, you can't have it both ways. You either stand or you sit down. And I expect you to do the same. Call it out for what it is. Our Commonwealth's attorney is not doing her job. Why do you think we can't get police officers to fill those positions? Because they are vulnerable to being headhunted by an activist Commonwealth's attorney here in Portsmouth. We've lost a lot of good officers, and I knew some of them personally. I've done ride-alongs with them. And don't tell me that I haven't seen what goes on in this city. I dare say most of you have not done a ride-along. I've seen the worst of the worst in this city. And I've ridden with some people I'm not allowed to divulge who I rode with and under what capacity. But crime is crime, and crime is committed by criminals, not inanimate objects. Now, do I need to be any blunter than what I've been? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Jim Wright.
I'm Jim Wright. I reside at 1520 Blanche Drive in Portsmouth. Merry Christmas, Council and City Manager and everybody here. I came to speak on something else, and it was resolved. I was going to stand on my head about what was going on with the city attorney. How in the world a man with that record could be considered, I don't know. I don't know how the search committee works on who they are, but it's behind us. Let's do better, right? Let me give you something positive, though. Mr. Santa Claus, I love you. I love you, man. My mother's 85. I'm going to see her next. She grew up here. She rode the river in the 50s to work. My daughter's 83. Took a train from right here in 1959 to Florida. This was Trainsville's. My daughter is 81. She was at the 200-year anniversary of Portsmouth. This is a historic town. I came here 3 years ago plus to visit my father. I didn't come here, and Portsmouth was not on my bucket list. I lived in Fairfax County for 37 years. I watched a bedroom community boom, because the people made good decisions, like you. I saw it boom. Now, I'm excited because I'm not leaving. I was headed for Virginia Beach, where I have a bed. I haven't seen it. I've been here. My dad passed away, went to heaven last year. But I learned about my city. I could not believe the history. I'm a Craddock boy. I went to first grade in Craddock and graduated from high school. How's my time? Anyway, this place is historic. I was downtown, saw you, Mayor, and I took a video of the Carolyn. Do you guys what's going down here? This is special. There's no place like this. 94,000 people in downtown is festive. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't see the tree lighting, and I know it was great. But this city is special, and you guys are special, and I'm not leaving because I think it's special, and I thank you for the time. Let's get the right city attorney, a man of integrity and with no rap record.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sheila Joseph. Ms. Joseph, you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
I would like to say thank you for allowing me to speak again before you all. Majority of you done heard my story from 2016. I'm Sheila Joseph on 139 Grand Street. I just want to speak a little bit about it because I had been writing to Congress and different ones about my issue, including FEMA. It was about the flood of Matthew in October the 16th. And from that day, I've been asking before the council for someone to come out and look at my video pictures of what happened to me. And no one really took the time. My son over there, we live in a duplex, which is 5-bedroom on one side and 1 bedroom. He had his 1 bedroom ever since he was 7 years old. And we went downstairs when the hurricane hit. I had just renovated, putting new floors and everything, away from Home Depot and everybody. And 7 months later, it turned around. The hurricane cracked the concrete floor and the rain all the way around the edge. We, out of one room alone, we got 200 gallons of water. They had to go up back and forward of 13 stairway. But the part that was bothering me so much that the city is responsible for a drainage. A lot of people have a drainage, and I stay on the end, and I catches everybody's water, whether it's a hurricane or not. And I decided to do videos all the time. The police knows that I do a lot of pictures of all these events and everything. And a lot of people don't look at it the way I do when I do photography and videoing. I have been through the Hurricane Floyd and went down to Franklin and used it for an example. FEMA get funded to help disasters. I want to know why is I didn't get anything when I have forms to show that I applied. And one of the requirements that I had insurance, but my insurance had a loophole they used and said that the wind, which was 75 miles per hour, it cracked the street on the end of Hanson and Royal. And they turned around, had to dig down and pull the pipes out. But when it did crack my floor, I was told it's sewage water. So I don't feel like it's necessary to have insurance when you keep paying money and don't get any help. So they always come up. So FEMA, I found out this year that they told Congress that they didn't give me anything because I didn't qualify. Or what it takes. I want somebody to find out what it takes to qualify when you got 1,400 square feet in your house of water and only the two of us is fighting, trying to keep it from spreading, using, different things to carry the water into the bathroom and pour it down the stool. I am confined from 2016 up to now, and a room, my living room, is 25 by 17. Do the math, the square foot. That's my dining room, my living room, and my bedroom for me to be in. And my son have his. But those other 4 bedrooms, I'm not allowed to use what my intent to do. So therefore, I was told by FEMA I can live because I have bathroom, kitchen, living room, and dining room upstairs. But I had the pictures to show what my house is like before the hurricane, because I believe in when somebody touch my home, I would like to take a video of their work showing what it was, what they was dealing with before and after. And then when I was able to have FEMA to rush through and tell me he did not want to look at the pictures, and I didn't understand when I was told 50 people in this city got help, but I didn't. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Mayor Barnes, you have the floor, sir.
City manager, can we look into seeing what we can do to help her out? What type of service out there for her and things of that nature?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I spoke to her before the meeting, stating that we were going to set up a meeting to meet with her and get a better understanding of her issues. So, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Our last speaker this evening is Adley Spratley. Adley Spratley. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
I'm going to pray I can get this out in 5 minutes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, council members, and those in attendance. My name is Adley Spratley. I live in Newport News. I have a ministry called Hey Young Black Man and Street Ministry. Through donations, I'm able to give out Bibles, also ride through neighborhoods, talk, pray, and give out my card to the youth. Even though my focus is on young black men and boys, I do this for everyone. I go to hospitals when someone has been shot, leave a Bible for that person with their family, hospital staff, or police officer. I go to the scene when someone has been murdered to pray, give out Bibles, just show love. These young men and boys need to know that God loves them, Jesus loves them, and that I love them. Some of y'all may be surprised at the I love yous and hugs that I've received since doing this ministry since 5 September 2020. My ministry started in Portsmouth mid-October when I heard God say there's a spirit of death over the city of Portsmouth and it's operating through black-on-black violence. I also have an LLC called Hey Young Black Man where I just completed writing up a program to offer once everything is copyrighted and official. I'm here today because when I hear warnings from God, they come to pass. Example 1, March 2020, when I left a shooting where no one was hurt, but 30 bullets were sprayed in an apartment complex, I heard God say, you're going to be at more crime scene shootings. This is a warning, not for you to pray for it not to happen, but because it is going to happen. And as we know, all the gun violence that has happened this year in Hampton Roads. Example 2, before the present school year, God put in my spirit something about the concern of gun violence in Newport News Public Schools. I replied to a tweet. It didn't have anything to do with gun violence, but it was the only way I could think of in the moment to bring it up. I don't know if anyone ever saw the comment, so I wasn't surprised when a shooting happened at Heritage High School, which I immediately went to the hospital, talked with both kids' parents, gave them a Bible for their child. I prayed with one of the kids' families, as well as gave out over 20 Bibles to the youth that was there. I got in touch with the facility where the alleged shooter is and made sure that he got one of the Bibles that I give out, and for them to let him know that myself and others are praying for him. But before I go into what God revealed to me about this city, I just want to read Isaiah 62, 6 and 7. It says, I have set watchmen on your walls, O Jerusalem. They shall never hold their peace day or night. You who make mention of the Lord, do not keep silent, and give him no rest till he establishes, until he makes Jerusalem a praise. And reading this passage of scripture, I just kept replacing Jerusalem with Portsmouth. And I just want y'all to know that I will not keep silent or give God no rest until he establishes this city and makes this city a praise in the earth. Now, for months I've been hearing Portsmouth will never be prosperous until they take care of this gun violence. Recently, my spirit became grieved when I heard about the ground groundbreaking ceremony for the casino. And that's when I heard God say, it's going to get worse in this city. Warn the people. A week ago, I made a post on my social media. It said, for those that are called to pray, pray. For those that are called to act, act. For those that want to point the finger and complain, be careful before it comes to your front door. Now, the city council, along with police chief, city manager, and other officials of this city have a duty to act. They have a duty to act behind the scenes, and even more, a duty to act where the actions are visible to the public, so the residents and all others that are concerned and care about Portsmouth can see what is being done. The city of Portsmouth received a Department of Criminal Justice grant for use by the city's police department for $495,324. That was approved May 2021 to be used for reduction of gun violence between 1 June 2021 and 30 June 2023. 25% of the grant money is supposed to be given to non-governmental agencies and organizations whose purpose is to reduce gun violence, which is about $123,831. So my questions are, 1, how has this grant been used thus far? 2, how can myself and others apply for a portion of this 25% of the grant? 3, are shot spotters going to be purchased and placed throughout the city? 4, have increased lighting been placed or will be placed in areas known for gun violence? 5, are cameras on the streets throughout the city and neighborhoods where the area is known for gun violence that can be monitored by the police department and 911 dispatchers? And can we get answers to these questions tonight, if not when? It is ridiculous and sad how many times I've been to funeral homes in Portsmouth this year due to young black men and boys being murdered and by other young black men and boys for me to leave a Bible with the family in memory of their loved ones. I'm also here because God said go, and God reminded me of Isaiah 58:1. Cry loud, spare not. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sins. And what God put in my spirit is, if there's any sneaky, underhanded things going on behind the scenes in this city as to why the issue of black-on-black violence is the way it is, or if there seems to be, or why it seems to not be a priority, God is giving whoever this applies to time to repent and do what is right for this city, and most importantly for the residents of this city. And lastly, my prayers for us that are fed up is that we stay convinced that God can do anything and everything, and that we know nothing or no one can upset God's plan for this city.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Spratley had mentioned the grant money and how it's been dispersed. I'd like to ask the city manager to get back with us and Ms. Spratley and let us know if that money is out in the field thus far.
Will do.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, ma'am. You have the floor.
Matter of fact, our ombudsman is taking down all of those questions, and we'll be able to respond to all the questions that she raised tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Mayor Barnes.
Well, not only to find out if it's out in the field, but we also want to know details of what's actually being used for, who has it, what they're doing with it, and the impact that it has so far.
Councilmember Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also for the city manager, I know the camera technology wasn't a part of what we were doing. As PRHA was supposed to be taking care of that. Can we also get a follow-up on that as well to see where they at with that process?
Well, actually, the city is working in partnership with PRHA to install security cameras and have installed security cameras and continue to look for ways that we can use remaining CARES Act funding to install additional ones.
Right.
So,
right. I know. I'm just want to know the timeline on it. I know we're working on that.
well, we're waiting on PRHA.
Right.
Some have already been installed. We'll give a complete report on all of those questions because it also includes shot spotter technology as well. And so we'll provide that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody, sir.
Mr. Parr made what I thought was a very detailed presentation tonight. A couple things that he mentioned: community policing and NEAT offices. A lot of us remember when community policing was really at the forefront of our crime prevention, along with the NEAT offices. I would like to revisit that. Also, the technology part. I know some cities have implemented technology to help the gun violence in communities. And we've had study after study on revitalizing Afton Square, and it seems like we get nice studies, but very few implementations of it. And some of it has been because of the private ownership in the square. But we need to revisit those things, particularly the community policing, the technology, and the need offices. I think those suggestions have merit. They have a track record of working in the past, and I don't see why they wouldn't work again.
Madam Manager, you have the floor.
In response to the NEAT officers, that came up at the Civic Association meeting. It was brought up, and as a result of that, we are looking at some semblance of how we do that, given the staff resources that we have. But we want to make sure that this community knows that we're trying to be responsive, we're trying to be strategic as we locate police officers out in areas where we're trying to deter crime. So it's not something that we're not working on, but we're trying to do so within the resources we have. And not only are we looking at police officers, but that's why there's been a focus on events, there's been a focus on youth programs, there's been a focus on dealing with trauma in this community, preventing homelessness. So we're looking across the board at how we can respond to crime in this community.
Thank you, sir. And one other thing I do want to mention, Ms. White, our city clerk, and her awesome staff, I think, are the ones responsible for decorating the chamber. Is that correct, ma'am? And we could not do the things that we do as a council without the team in our city clerk's office. And so we're grateful for them. We're also grateful for all of the citizens and what you do to make our city better. That being said, council members, seeing no additional business, we are adjourned.